Hello viewers, we have with us Puneet Nicholas Yadav and he will discuss about the Women's Reservation Bill. As a senior political journalist, he is going to give us insight into what the bill is and what is the government trying to achieve by passing this bill. Puneet, I would like to begin by asking you what exactly is the Women's Reservation Bill?
Well, Ashwin, the thing is that this the bill has reportedly been cleared by the Union Cabinet last evening. What exactly it contains, we do not know at the moment because the details were not shared. As is customary after a cabinet meeting, the decisions are, basically explained to, to the press at a cabinet briefing. But then the customary cabinet briefing was not held last evening. Why there was this sort of, flurry of, these news reports suggesting that the Women's Reservation Bill has been cleared by the cabinet was largely because, one, there had already been a lot of speculation that the special session of parliament would be an occasion to, that the Modi government would use to bring the bill. And second, because Mr. Prahlad Patel, who is the Union Minister of State for Food Processing Industries, put out a tweet congratulating the Prime Minister, saying that only he and his government had the moral courage to bring the Women Reservation Bill. Now, funnily enough, after a few hours, Mr. Patel deleted that post. So now one doesn't know whether he was, was asked to delete that post because, it did not have sort of the approval of the Prime Minister, because no other minister, no other member of the cabinet had put out that tweet. That decision was not made public. So the exact details we do not know. What I can tell you is basically from what we know of the bill, the Women's Reservation Bill, that was passed by the Rajya Sabha during the UPA government on the 9th of March 2010. And simply put, the reservation, the bill requires for 33% or one-third reservation of constituencies across all state legislatures and the parliament for women. Within those 33% are also reserved seats for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Now, this is not a separate reservation. This reservation, as per the 2010, the bill passed in 2010, the provision was that you already have a certain number of seats that are reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe candidates. Of those seats, one-third would be reserved for women of those two communities. So one-third from the existing quota of SC/ST seats reserved for women, plus whatever figure is left after that in the general quota reserved for women. And the reservation, as per the 2010 bill again, was to stay in effect for 3 consecutive electoral cycles, which basically means for 15 years, 5-year being one electoral cycle. So 15 years, this would continue. After that, as is always the case with affirmative action, if the government of the day thinks that the reservation needs to continue beyond 15 years, then a call would be taken accordingly and suitable changes to the law will be made at that point. So 15 years time frame, 33% reservation for women across state legislatures and parliament. That was broadly the scheme of things under the 2010 Act. Now that bill was passed by the Rajya Sabha. One is assuming that the Modi government would not have tinkered with that bill, and so it is that bill that will be moved by the government in the Lok Sabha. Because under the parliamentary scheme of things, when a bill is passed by the Rajya Sabha, it does not lapse. Unlike those bills which are passed by the Lok Sabha, but not passed by the Rajya Sabha, those bills lapse. They are, in a sense, considered dead once the term of that parliament, of the Lok Sabha, ends. But that does not apply to bills that are passed in the Rajya Sabha. So, since this was passed in the Rajya Sabha, though it was passed 13 years ago, because it was in the Rajya Sabha, has not lapsed, and so it can be moved in the Lok Sabha in the form that it was passed in Rajya Sabha. And based on that, we are assuming that the bill and the details of the bill would be the same as the one in 2000. Well, Ashwin, the thing is, it's difficult to pinpoint on uh, the rationale behind what the Prime Minister does with regards to, legislation and policy, uh, and not link it to electoral gains for the BJP. The BJP's political rivals, particularly the Congress, have gone hammer and tongs over the last few days, saying that why did you have to keep this veil of secrecy around this legislation?
Yeah.
It could have very well been discussed, considering that the bill was passed when in the Rajya Sabha, when the Congress and its allies in the UPA were in power. And there was already a broad bipartisan support for this legislation. And so it is not as if the opposition or the principal opposition party, which is the Congress, would have objected had the government taken them into confidence. And in fact, over the last 9 years, there have been repeated occasions when the former Congress president and the chairperson of the Congress Parliamentary Party, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, former Congress President, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and the current Congress President, Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, have written letters to the Prime Minister demanding that this bill be passed. Various other parties, which are not necessarily in either camp, be it the NDA or the India Alliance, such as a prime example being Mr. Naveen Patnaik's Biju Janata Dal, have been extremely vocal votaries of the women reservation bill. So why the government did not see it fit to discuss it at all with any of the political parties, and I'm given to understand not even with people within the BJP. Even they were quite clueless when the special session was announced on what exactly is the agenda, because we know that even when the agenda was finally announced, it was a tentative agenda and the women reservation bill was not mentioned. Now, on the limited point of why, the only thing that strikes me is the immediate electoral rhetoric that the BJP would try to build around it. Because you see, this is a bill that has been in the pipeline for over 30 years now. The first time that the idea of reservation for women in elected bodies took root in the scheme of things for the government, for the central government, was back in 1988, when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister and there was a Congress government. And there was, if memory serves, Mrs. Margaret Alva, who, a year ago was the opposition's candidate for vice president, was then a union minister, and she had been asked to prepare a report. Uh, uh, Pardon me if I'm wrong, but I think it was called the Perspective on Women plan, which was for a period from 1988 to 1998 or 1988 to 2000. And that report, there were close to 300 recommendations that were made. Women reservation was one of those recommendations, and that is how this came to be. And subsequently, in 1992, 93, when again there was a Congress government at the center, Mr. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister, that report paved the way for reservations for women in urban local bodies, in Panchayati Raj institutions, Gram Sabhas, Gram Panchayats, etc. Although the legislatures and the parliament, the reservation did not apply there. And subsequently, every prime minister has made an effort to bring this bill. Mr. Devegowda was the first one during whose prime ministership it actually took the form of a bill and was introduced in the Lok Sabha in 1996-97. Subsequently, Mr. Gujral, the prime minister, tried, had some failed attempts, but he also tried to bring the bill. Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, several times when he was Prime Minister, made an effort to bring the bill. And finally, all these were efforts made in the Lok Sabha. Mr. Manmohan Singh's government, they brought it in the Rajya Sabha, and under a lot of dramatic scenes, it was passed in the Rajya Sabha. And now Mr. Modi has brought it 9 years after being in power. And so naturally, the question that will be asked is that you had a brute majority since 2014. Their absolute majority in the Lok Sabha did not come in 2019, it came in 2014 itself. And the numbers favored them in the Rajya Sabha also from 2014 onwards. So why did you spend 9 years not bringing this bill? Why now?
Right.
And naturally, because this is also a time when Mr. Modi is facing a lot of criticism with regard to various aspects on which the government's response has been less than satisfactory, whether it is rising inflation, whether it is rising unemployment, whether it is, this very visible tear in India's social and, synthetic fabric. And then there is, of course, this shrill demand from the opposition for a caste census. And these are all electorally important issues, and the Prime Minister does not have an answer. So, is the Women's Reservation Bill being brought now, 6 months ahead of the Lok Sabha elections, 2 months or a month and a half before 5 major states, or at least 4 big states and one small northeastern state of Mizoram are going to polls, and the BJP finds itself in a bit of a spot of bother, is a natural question to be asked, and we know that the BJP has very aggressively created a constituency of women voters for itself over the last 9 years, and Mr. Modi himself has been at the forefront of wooing this constituency. Whether it was with regard to schemes like Ujjwala, the second version of which was cleared by the cabinet only a week ago, or various other schemes, the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, etc. And we've seen that there has been a steadily increasing turnout of women in elections, and by and large, surveys suggest that the BJP fares better among women voters than any of its rivals do. With women's reservation, clearly there is an electoral aspect to it, and the timing raises those suspicions. That there's no denying that.
Right. But like you said, the Prime Minister's response to key issues has not been satisfactory. But considering this bill was initially brought by the UPA government, do you think this could paper over the cracks? Even though, as you said, BJP's female vote bank is quite large comparatively, but do you think this bill could paper over the cracks?
Paper over the cracks, as in with regard to what?
With regards to 2024.
Well, I mean, these are always matters of conjecture. It's difficult to say what works and what does not work with the electorate, because ultimately it's the electorate which decides how it chooses to respond to an issue. It may work brilliantly in certain areas. It may completely fall flat in some other states. It all depends on the narrative that the BJP is able to build to capitalize on it, or the opposition is able to build to puncture it. So we don't know, but considering that this is something that is tailor-made for the for the women constituency, uh, there is naturally an expectation that the BJP stands to gain. The best thing for the Congress and the opposition now is, the best approach is perhaps to, in a convincing manner, go to the people and tell them that, this is something that, as the Congress has been doing, that this was our brainchild. We were the ones who first brought it. We were the ones who pursued it. The fact that Mr. Modi has been able to have it cleared in the Lok Sabha, and if it is cleared in the Lok Sabha and subsequently 50% of state legislatures, since it's a constitutional amendment, the Congress will have to go and tell the people that half the test, or the actual litmus test of the Rajya Sabha was cleared by us when we were in power, and we were the ones who did the heavy lifting. So whether that cuts with the electorate is a different matter, but I mean that's the only thing that the Congress is going to be able to go to the people with regard to this.
So thank you for your time, Puneet.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.